Hey, this is Brandon with Blend Fitness. Today we're going to be talking about why proper movement mechanics are important for results in the gym. Let's get to it. All right, guys, let's start off with the biggest issue. The biggest issue with most people is that when they're doing exercises, they're not doing them properly. For instance, if you see someone squat, their knees are caving in, the shoulders are rounding forward. This can be problematic and cause injuries. What happens when you get into a group training class, a boot camp, where someone's not watching you and you're going through these movements in a repeated fashion? That's basically gonna put you at risk for more injury. The reason a lot of people get injured in high intensity exercises is because they're not doing the movements right. They're not loading the muscle, but instead they're loading the joints. This has started from basically instability in the foot, instability in the ankle, and the knees have to make up for that, or the adductor magnus is tight, that's the muscle in your inner thigh. Glutes are unstable, they're not stabilizing the hips, so it requires other muscles to compensate for that, such as in a squat. Your quad, right? That's responsible for bringing you up and down. What happens when your knees are caving in is now your knees are having to act as a stabilizers to stabilize your body. This is basically just putting the stress on your joints versus the muscles. Not only are we stressing the joints, but now we're not activating the muscle to their full potential. It's gonna burn and utilize more calories to fully activate a muscle versus half-ass activating a muscle, right? So if we're only activating part of our quad for the full range of motion, that's not gonna burn as many calories as if we're activating the entire quad for the full range of motion. Therefore, you're not gonna burn as many calories. As everyone knows, most people, we're gonna be losing fat when we're in a caloric deficit. So you get in a caloric deficit by burning more calories than you're consuming. So if you're half-assing movements, then you're more likely not gonna be in a caloric deficit as much. So how do we fix this? We're gonna go back to the basics. And I'm gonna specifically talk about squat in this instance, but this goes across all exercises. So in the squat, there's several components that are involved to make sure that the form's correct. So you really wanna focus on the foot positioning, where your knees are tracking, if your core is engaged, where your hips are positioned, if they're tilted forward or back, what your upper back is doing, and what your arms are doing. You wanna focus on that. It's a total body exercise. And if one thing's off, it can throw the entire squat off. It's gonna make other muscles have to compensate. This goes with bench press and all those other exercises too. There's several small details in those movements that can have a big effect on the movement that you might not notice. An example for bench would be with the elbows flaring really high. That's just an example. But really going back to the basics and really paying attention and being aware of where your foot positioning is and your body in space. A lot of people, they'll just go into the squat and they'll just crank them out, right? You don't want that. You want to make sure that everything's fluent and that you're smooth with your movements and you're thinking about it. Exercising and doing workouts isn't just a mindless activity. You have to think to actually engage the muscle. You have to think about what muscles you're engaging and how you're moving. And if you could stop for a second when you're doing your squats and really pay attention if your knees are tracking out and forward, if your hips are staying in a neutral position, if your chest is staying up, if your feet are planted flat on the ground. Those are all gonna ensure that you're doing a proper squat. And that's gonna make sure that you're not overloading muscles and causing inherent risk for injury. Hopefully this video has been helpful for you. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe. Until next time, wear the blends.